An IMG in dermatology. Many think that this is a myth for an IMG to match into dermatology, and many of you reached out to me to find somebody to talk about their experience matching into the competitive dermatology specialty. So that's why I brought Nina to talk about her match experience into dermatology at the prestigious Johns Hopkins program. Welcome, Nina, to the channel, and congratulations on your match.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Malka. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's start by telling the viewers a little bit about yourself, your background, what you've done to match into Hopkins, like in briefly, and then we will dive into details of all these things that you'll talk about.
Yeah. So my name is Nina. I'm an international medical graduate from Lebanon. Recently matched into dermatology at Hopkins, and I'm going to be doing my preliminary internal medicine year at Mount Sinai Medical Center in Miami. For a lot of reasons, including the weather. But I went to medical school to the Lebanese University in Beirut, and then I graduated in 2022, moved to the US for a research position at Hopkins, and I'm currently wrapping up my last and third year of research here.
That's awesome. Congratulations again on this very impressive match. So let's start by talking about the USMLE Step scores, because this is, a factor that people think is the only reason why somebody matched, especially IMGs. They think, people match based on their score. And as you know, this is not the case. Can you tell us the importance of the Step 2 CK score now, because Step 1 doesn't have a score anymore, and how important that for derm is?
Yeah, definitely. I think that your step scores are important. They're not the only factor though. So I feel like your step scores are like a checklist. Some programs have a cutoff, and I think most of the derm programs, their cutoff for step 2 CK is 240 right now. And the average step 2 CK score was 257, I think, for US medical graduate and 252 for IMGs this year who matched into derm. But that's not to say that if you don't have a score of 260 or 250, you're not going to match. I think the cutoff, as I said, was 240 for this year. And I think that since step 1 is pass-fail right now, people are looking more at your step 2 score. So as long as you're above that specific cutoff, I think you're good to go for that specific factor. But the match process has a lot of factors that come into play. It's not just your step scores. It's not just your medical school grades. It's a lot more than that. It's your research background. It's your personality. It's how you work with people. You need people to get to know you, to know that they can work with you. You're a good learner. You would be a good resident at their program. So I think it's a whole package. Some people, unfortunately, don't match, even though they check all of the boxes. I think luck also comes into play with that.
Exactly. And we will dive into detail into each of these things that you talked about, because they're very important. And as you mentioned, there are cutoffs for certain programs, but this cutoff changes from a program to another. So, of course, the higher score, you will pass more cutoffs, but you have to understand it's not one criteria. Each program has their own structure, their own selection criteria based on the competitiveness of the program. Some programs might not even have a cutoff because they want to review all applications and consider things holistically. So, you have to understand that it's not one single factor, it's a lot of factors combined. And for those who are applying to the master's cycle, we have a full list of free resources that you can sign up to, interview prep resources, questions, answers, personal statement examples, either application template, that you can get all these fully for free if you sign up on the link that I'll leave in the description below. So now we talk a little bit about the USMLE scores. People like to understand the beginning of the story. When did you start thinking about derm? I'm sure people told you it's impossible. Why did you keep fighting to do it? When did you start preparing for the USMLE exams in that process? Can you give us a little bit idea about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I love to talk about this because, yes, a lot of people didn't tell me it was hard, told me it was impossible. And I hate the word impossible because nothing's impossible. And this is how I was raised. So I always loved dermatology ever since even before I started medical school. I loved dermatology when I was in high school. And then after going into medical school, I knew I loved it. I was scared. It's even competitive to get into dermatology in Lebanon. But then when I decided to move abroad, I knew I wanted to pursue dermatology. I knew I wanted to dive deeper into research, and I didn't have many opportunities in Lebanon. And I wanted to do dermatology in the best possible place in the world. So I thought that coming to the US is going to be challenging, but I'm going to grow through that. I'm going to get through it, and I'm going to get it. And if you want something enough in life, I think nothing can stop you. I think you need to be dedicated. I think you need to persevere. You need to put yourself out there, even though you know that you might fail. I think it's important to try. It's important to put yourself out there. And if you want it enough, it'll get to you. So to answer your question about my step prep, I took my step 1 exam during my med 3 year, and that was pass fail. So I knew I had to work more on my step 2 exam because people will focus more on the score that I'm going to get on that exam. So I started studying for my step 2 exam during my 2nd year of research. I think I studied for like a month and a half while I was also doing my research. So I didn't have a lot of time off during that time, and I was able to get the score that I wanted to.
Awesome. So going to dermatology, as you said, a lot of people told you it's impossible. Did you have a backup plan in case things did not work out? What were you gonna do? Congratulations, you matched. You don't need to worry about that. But I just want to have our viewers think about what went through your mind when preparing for this, difficult process.
Yeah, a lot went through my mind. I was very stressed. I was scared, but I was also excited for what's to come. Having a backup plan, I think, is very important. You can't be all in or all out. You have to have a backup plan. And so for me, that backup plan was, first of all, I was going to try again next year, the year after. I was going to try again until I get it, because this is what I want to be in the future. But my backup plan would be to do my preliminary year and then to reapply next year, basically.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the backup options, because once you do a year of clinical training in the US, people would check the box of you understanding the system, especially as an IMG. You have a year under your belt and you're applying again. Some people I've seen, they do a full internal medicine residency and they apply to derm, because internal medicine is only 3 years. And if you do the full internal medicine residency, first you're board certified in IM, so you can practice in that. But also when you apply to derm, you're applying to a PGY2 position. So you're not losing, but the difference is only 2 years. So it's not that big of a difference when it comes to, your whole career. So now let's move on to talk about research. As people who know me and watch me long enough, they know how much I advocate for research, especially for competitive specialties. When we're talking about neurosurgery, plastic surgery, NT, ortho, derm, research, is almost, I'm not going to say always, almost mandatory. And there's a lot of things that play into the success of you matching to specialty after the research. We'll talk about that next. But can you tell us about the importance of research for derm specifically? You said you did 3 years of research in derm. Why did you do 3 years, not 1?
Yeah. So when I first moved here, actually, I was going for 2 years of research. So I was going to do 1 year and apply, because, usually apply 1 year before you start your residency. So I had in mind a total of 2 years of research. I came to a lab that does translational research. So when I was here, I figured out that my research is going to take time. Basically, the first year for me was all about learning. I didn't publish a single paper the first year because I was still learning, still adapting to the culture here, to the system here, trying to understand what I'm doing, because it's a huge change for me. And then I spoke with my mentor, Dr. Luis Garza, who told me that if you really want to get into derm, 2 years is not going to be enough for you, especially in our lab. You need to do an extra year, because this is when you start publishing. And effectively, this is what happened. So after my first year was over, I started publishing my papers. And then I want to say something about research. So a lot of people told me, you need to have 30 publications, 40 publications, like X number of publications. And I was scared at first because I believed them. A lot of people talked about case reports or like basic research stuff, which I was scared because I didn't have a lot of those. I went to a public university in Lebanon. But then along the way, I've learned that having a good quality research is more important than having quantities. So if you have 20 case reports versus a very good paper in a very good journal, having this very good paper is more important than having 20 case reports.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And that's why I don't give people a number of publications. They ask me, what is a good number for me to apply? It's not about the number. It's
Yeah.
about the experience, what you've been doing, especially in translational research or basic science research. It's much, much harder to get a paper. People
Yeah.
understand the difficulty associated with getting a paper. Funny story, Nina, I had the same experience when I started research. I came here, I was doing only 6 months. I told mentor only 6 months of research. It's like a negotiation. And then he was like, okay. So I started doing the 6 months, and then at the end he was like, I don't think it's gonna work out after only 6 months. Because realistically, for people to understand why are we saying it doesn't work after that short time period, it takes time to publish. Sending a paper, getting reviews, sending back the paper, getting the acceptance, getting the publication, it's almost an 8 to 9 months process. You getting your IRB, getting the data, getting the manuscript, having people review it, submitted is another 6 to 7 month process. So you can understand it. After a year, you almost have nothing. You have a lot of things happening, a lot of things that you might publish soon, but nothing actually published. So that's why it takes some time to get these things out and build these relationships. Can you tell us a little bit about the value of mentorship? Because a lot of IMGs might not be familiar with what is the role of mentor in the US? How can they support you and their role in helping you match into residency?
Yeah. I think mentorship is one of the most important factors to match into residency, especially when we're talking about a competitive residency or a niche specialty such as dermatology with a very limited number of spots and positions per year. Having a mentor is having someone to look up to, someone to guide you along the way, someone that brings out the best version of you, that really teaches you how to be that good at what you're doing. So for me, I think having that mentor that I spoke about, and I was able also throughout my experience at Hopkins to identify several mentors. So I've worked with several people here, whether being on research projects, whether being during clinical hours and clinical rotation that I did here. And I think that was very important for me because I've learned so much through them. They provided me with a lot of critical feedback that was very important for me because right now I'm a different person than the person I was 3 years ago when I was in Lebanon. And I don't think I would have done it without those mentors. I think those are the people that also advocated for me, whether being through letters of recommendation or being through actually advocating for me because I wanted to stay at Hopkins and this is where I ended up. And I do believe that this was the most important thing during my application season.
You kind of summarized the reasons why we have this workshop on how to find research positions in the US, because you mentioned the value of mentorship that goes beyond just writing a letter of recommendation. It's this growth period that happens during your research time, because an applicant to plastic surgery or dermatology on the US level looks totally different than an IMG. So you need to understand what these people need, how to speak, how to, approach things, how to publish, not just the research experience, but the whole personality perspective. Because it's not right or wrong, but I'm sure people in Syria and Lebanon talk differently than people in the US. The way they consider pushy versus not too much versus too much is totally different between countries, and you need to spend some time here to really understand these nuances and have people like you and support you. And another point that was very important that you mentioned is the mentorship and its role in helping you match. And I want to add to that this is not like someone People think about mentorship that, oh, this is my father's friend and he helped me match. No, this is somebody who you really impressed with your work. It's not like, they're doing you a favor or something. You actually worked with this person a lot, and this person is impressed by your work, and now they're supporting you for a reason, because they believe in you, because they like your work. It's not they're just it's like a favor thing. So just to really understand the value of coming to the US and doing research, because that is the difference between you spending time here, understanding the culture, building these connections, and doing remote research. Because some people ask me, can I do research from India? Can I do research from Pakistan? Yes, you can, but you're missing on all these very important reasons why you need to do it in the US. And it can be the difference between you matching and not matching. And for those who want to understand more the nuances of how to pick a mentor, how to pick the institution, what kind of characteristics of a mentor you should look for, check out our research positions workshop. I'll leave the link for that in the description below, so you can access the recordings of prior sessions and join the next live session that will happen, that will share with you all the details of these nuances that you might not know or might not find easily online. Now let's move on to the next, important thing when it comes to matching, which is the application process, selecting programs, rotations. How did you navigate that process when it comes to dermatology?
Yeah, it was challenging. I'm sure a lot of people know as IMGs, we don't get the chance to do as many as clinical rotations as US medical graduates. For me, I was also coming, as I said, from a public school, so I didn't get the chance to do any clinical rotation in the US during my medical school. But what I was able to do is when I moved here, I was able to establish connections at Hopkins. And then through those connections, I was able to be with people in clinics, even if it was just shadowing. Anything that they give you, you should take it. It's important to be there. It's important to show them that you care, that you want to learn. It's important to ask questions, show up for grand rounds, show up for anything, literally anything that you can say that I'm good enough or I want to learn. And so on average, I think the recommended number of clinical rotations this year was 2 for people who have a home dermatology program and 3 for people who don't have a home dermatology program. I tried to do rotations at different institutions than Hopkins, but it wasn't possible for me because I'm already a medical doctor. So there were some malpractice and insurance issues through which I wasn't able to navigate the process. But I did my best to try to have this experience here at Hopkins. And I think it helps a lot. It helps you, first of all, experience the culture of the program, know what the strength of the program are, what the weaknesses of the program are, know if you really want to be there, because this is also very important. You're going to live a big part of your life in that program. This is when you're going to be learning. And so it's important for you to know that this is a program I want to be at. But it's also important for you to establish connections in that program. As I said, I think clinical rotations are very important.
And you brought up a very important point that you can do these clinical experiences during your research time, because especially for a specialty like dermatology, if you did not have the chance to do electives, which are great, if you didn't have the chance to do that, the best way to find good rotations in derm is when your mentors reach out to their friends in other institutions and maybe get you a 2-week observership or something that you can establish these connections. Because for dermatology, you need to do it in a place that has a residency program, because I don't see much value in doing it in a private practice or something. You'll probably get some experience, but it's really important to, in each rotation, each week you're spending with somebody who can possibly take you in their program. So if you can't find these outside your institution, you can do it at your institution with your mentor, because most of the time your mentor is a clinical person as well, and you can do some shadowing. Even in the operating room, you can go and observe. Even though they might not let you scrub in, they might not let you examine patients, it still checks that box of you having some touch with clinical. And keep in touch with clinical, because, as Nina did, as I did, as a lot of people who match competitive specialties, they spend years doing research. So if you're off clinical for a long time, that make people suspicious of, is this person still remembers medicine? It's been 3 years. So just keep these things in mind to tell them, no, I've been in touch with them. I've been attending all grand rounds. I've been shadowing my mentor almost once a week or once a month or whatever, so that you can convince them that you still have the clinical skills to do a residency, which is a clinical job at the end of the day.
Yep, totally agree with that.
Awesome. Now let's talk about the match process. How did you select derm programs? I know in competitive specialties, some people apply everywhere. Did you have to apply everywhere? What kind of strategies helped you navigate this process?
Yes. So I did apply to many programs, to be honest, but I don't think that it was beneficial outside of my signals. So there's a new system in which you have to signal programs. And in dermatology this year, it was 3 gold signals and 25 silver signals, I believe. I got some interviews from my gold signals and I got some interviews from my silver signals, which I think was very good. The way I selected the programs, it was challenging because honestly, I didn't get the chance to rotate, as I said, in all of the institutions. And ultimately, unfortunately, no one gets the chance to rotate at 28 programs, but you have to look the program up. You can maybe try to reach out to some of the residents there, try to chat with them, learn about the program, learn about what are the strengths of the program versus the weaknesses in the program, knowing if you want to do research, for example, you'd want to be at an academic institution that has research funding, for example. So I think this is how I navigated the match for dermatology. I also looked at programs that have matched international medical graduates before, because I know that some programs filter us out just on the fact that we didn't study here. So this was also a factor in my research. And ultimately, I think also having connections in those programs is very important. I think those competitive and small specialties rely heavily on the connections you've built. And by connections, I don't mean personal connections and friendships. I mean professional relationships that you've built, people you've done research with, people you spoke with at conferences and meetings, for example. So people you were able to impress, because these are the people that will push for you to get an interview and ultimately push for you to be at that program if you really want to be there.
Exactly. Any tips when it comes to personal statements, ERS application?
Yeah. So I think personal statements, first of all, are very important. I think so. Everyone writes personal statements. And so I think when it comes to that, a lot of personal statements are very similar. It doesn't have to be your life story. I think what's most important in that is to have something that is unique to you, to differentiate you from everyone else. And the way I did it was I asked my mentors, what's unique about me? What do you think is unique about me? Because other people see in you things that you don't see in yourself. And ultimately, they describe things that I was like, wait, yeah, that's true. Like, I did that. And so those are the things that I wrote in my personal statement. And I think this is what made it that unique, honestly. This is for my personal statement. For your application, you also don't have to put everything you've done throughout your life there. It has to be targeted to the specialty that you want to do. It doesn't have to be a medical experience. It could be a volunteering experience or anything else, but just things that really show interest in the specialty that you want to be in.
These are great points. And, these two documents are very important. It might not be the reason you match, but it can definitely play a role in the overall picture, because as we said, there's so many factors that come to the decision of you matching into that specialty. And of course, your ERS application would summarize all the experiences in your life, experiences from work, clinical, volunteering, leadership. So it's very important to present that well. And as I said, we have full list of free filled ERS application, so you can see how a great one looks like. The same for personal statement examples, over 20 samples that you can get by signing up through the link that I'll leave in the description below. And if you need help, one-on-one help for somebody to actually edit your personal statement, edit your ERS application, we've helped hundreds of students with that process, and we're happy to help you. And we trust our work so much that we made this service 100% satisfaction, which means if you're not happy, we'll give you your money back even after we edit your document. So I'll leave the link for all these services in the description below. Now, let's talk about the interview process, because that's, a very, very important part when it comes to matching, especially in these competitive specialties. People say, once you get an interview, the ball is in your court. Now, you're on the same level as all applicants.
Yeah.
What interview strategies did you prepare? What kind of things you expected or surprised you in the interview process?
Yeah. I think interviews are the most important part of the process for me. This is what I personally think, because we all have really good applications. We all have really good letters of recommendations. Personal statements are mostly going to be good. So if you got to the point where, as you said, you got an interview from a program, that means that they like you. And so you want to make them want you, not just like you. And you want to make them feel that you do fit in the scope of the program, that you'd be a good fit to the goals and the objectives of the program, but also a good fit to their residents and their culture, because this is very important. And I think programs want to know that you're someone that they can spend 4, 5, 6 years with, maybe later become faculty, who knows, like practice at that program. So they really want to know that you can be that kind of person. For me, I started reading books. There are a couple of books about how to prep for interviews. So I started reading those books early on in the process because I knew I wanted to be ready for this. I think I started towards June or something, like even before I got my interviews. I was like, I want to be ready. And then I also worked with a consulting company through which I was able to also train and practice and to have a specific strategy on how to navigate the interview process. So it was nothing like how to answer each question specifically, but it gives you the tools to know how and to know the methods on how to answer and how to navigate questions, how to be confident, how to be honest. I think honesty also and being someone who's genuine goes a long way in the interview process. Just show them that you really want to be there. Show them that you've researched their program beyond the things that they put on their website. Like, don't tell them something that they have on their website. Show them that you've asked around, you've spoken with their residents, you know this program, and you want to be there because you have those same values. I think this is very important.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. Starting prep early and making the answers look natural is key, not just something you memorized. And that's why, if you want to sign up for our free interview prep resources, you get 200 plus interview questions, sample answers to these questions. And, Nina mentioned that it's very important to be prepped well. If you have advisors who can sit with you and spend hours prepping you for interviews and they have the experience with that, go for it. If you don't have that, we have phenomenal advisors ready to help you in your specialty of interest. So if you're in derm, you can pick Nina or any of our other advisors. If you're in another specialty, we have a long list of advisors, and this service again is 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you're not happy after you do the hour, we'll give you your money back. That's how much we trust the amazing value we'll give you through these sessions. And it's definitely worth the investment because that can make the difference between you matching and not. And we want you to match. So, Nina, that was a very insightful interview about the whole process, about dermatology. Any final thoughts or advice to people who are considering dermatology as a specialty?
Yes, I think knowing that dermatology is a challenging and a competitive specialty is important. It's important to set realistic expectations, but it's also important to keep pushing forward. I think grit is a very important characteristic you need to have in the process. You need to try. You're going to fail 1,000 times before succeeding once. So just keep pushing. If it doesn't work out the first time, it's going to work out the second time. If not the second, the third time. You just have to really want it enough and it will find you. So
thank you.
Everyone who's applying.
Thank you. That was very, I really appreciate your time and you spending the time with us and sharing this valuable advice. For our viewers, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell sign and click all so you get notified whenever I post future videos on the match process. I wish you best of luck. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything. It's not an easy process, but we're here to help you navigate it and make sure you match into your dream specialty. Again, best of luck. Congratulations, Nina, on your match, and see you in future videos.